Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again. I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me once again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-hosts on the net, starting off with award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. And I said filmmaker funny. Christopher, how you doing?
Did some beast with many eyes attack you or something?
Yes. It was a blob with many eyes.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I think I'm glad that we could watch a show where it makes me even more afraid to leave my house.
Yeah, we are here.
Take a trip.
We are here to discuss Lovecraft Country, a show that debuted tonight as we're recording on HBO, and yeah, it's something else, and I can't wait to get into it. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. But let's find out who else is here. Also joining us tonight is podcasting rock star and international cosplay queen, Vanessa Thompson. Vanessa, how you doing? Oh, there it is. There it is.
I am cloud nine after watching that. Yes. I'm doing great.
Well, there you go. Very lead. You are a Lovecraft fan, at least of his work. Maybe not of Lovecraft the person. We'll get into all that.
His inspirations.
Yes, but the all the beasties and stuff, right?
Yes, very much so.
All right, if it's got tentacles, you're in.
Cosmic horror, things that he and other. Well, hey now.
Not, you went further than I went, but that's okay.
That's a different show.
All right. Also joining us is Christopher Slattery. He is the Slattman. How you doing, sir?
Oh, great. Just, scared of tentacles now.
You should be. You really should be. Oh, man. Well, we've been talking about this show on HNR through the spring before the world turned upside down. So we've been looking forward to this, and it debuts tonight, and we thought, what better show for us to, really kind of get behind and discuss and enjoy for the next 10 weeks as it plays out on HBO every Sunday night. So let's get into what is Lovecraft Country, and it is based on a novel by Matt Ruff, and of course it is inspired by H.P. Lovecraft and the works of H.P. Lovecraft, or more importantly, the effects of race and his work. And if you know anything about Lovecraft, he was an unapologetic racist, and this show tackles that, and it tackles it straight up front. And when we get into it, the horror is more than just the beast. It is actually living in the United States as a black man or woman at this time in the 1950s or earlier, or even later, or even today. We'll get into all that, but let's talk about it. The director is Yann Demange. The writers are Misha Green, who also developed the show, Jonathan I. Kidd, Jordan Peele, Sonya Winton. Of course, it's produced by Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams for HBO. The cast includes Jurnee Smollett as Letitia fucking William Lewis. That's what her name is. If you watch the show, you know why I said that. Jonathan Majors is Atticus Freeman. Aunjaunue, excuse me, Ellis. I should have tried to pronounce these beforehand as Hippolyta. Freeman. Abby Lee as Christina Brathwaite. Jada Harris as Diana Freeman. Wumi Mosaku as Ruby Batiste. And Michael Kenneth Williams as Montrose Freeman. It is basically about Atticus Freeman, who meets up with his friend Letitia and his uncle George to embark on a road trip across 1950s Jim Crow America in search of his missing father. And the horror awaits them all. And it's it's going to be it's a hot topic any given time, especially here lately in the States, and of course historically in the States. But let's find out what we thought of the show as entertainment and bringing up these topics and making us deal with them straightforward. Vanessa, I'm really curious. You are a big fan of the works of H.P. Lovecraft. I want to make sure I'm talking about the works, because we want to separate the works from the man.
Yeah.
But let me know, please, what is your first impression of the first episode of Lovecraft Country called Sundown?
Oh, I just thought it was phenomenal. I think it looks gorgeous. I think the story that it's telling is so poignant and timeless, and that's heartbreaking that I could say that about it. I think, you find the horror to be the experience of African American people in America, and the actual horror, the Lovecraft horror, almost takes a back seat to that, even when they're introduced in the show. I just think it's just so beautifully done. The characters are so vivid and alive and dimensional, and I could just ramble on so many things about it that I find to be so wonderful. And the way that they're able to tell this story and work in this kind of, so Lovecraft deals a lot with cosmic horror and a lot with the inevitability of what's to come, the inevitability of death or of no hope. And the way that they work that feeling into the story without even touching on any creatures or anything is just beautiful to me. It's so layered and just so well done. And once we do get to what we think we're going to see the whole time, it's just even better. The way they work so many things into this, the way they don't just say, Lovecraft, it's a spinoff of this, and it's a type of this character, all of it based on literature. Literature is so important in this, and I love that that's kind of the crux that everything is based on, even down to the travel guide that they're working on. Literature is the key here. It's the thing. I think one of the lines, they say something about how, I wish I could remember better, but how literature lives on or something like that. I remember them saying, and it's just it's so true. It especially expressed that we're dealing with something that was written in the 1920s that can still come around and be completely relevant today, that Nicolas Cage is making movies based off of. But I honestly think that Jordan Peele's hand in this has just chef's kiss.
Yeah, that's definitely. They quote Dracula in the movie. They mention Count of Monte Cristo, or you see the book.
John Carter from Mars.
John Carter, yeah, the Princess
absolutely.
Of Mars. The beginning of it is just wonderful.
How the opening.
Oh,
yes,
wow,
I was like, I can't believe they're jumping into that already. And
right, I was like, wait, spaceships. Spaceships. I had no idea what was going on.
Good.
And damn dream sequence. But let's find out what the crew thought. Slatman, what did this show do to you? Was it awesome? Was it great? What was your first impression?
It was a great first episode. I loved the cast. I loved the story that it's telling, and I love the universe that it's in, because it's a very grounded in reality while 100% not being reality. But a lot of the issues, like Vanessa was talking about, are that the episode spends so much time talking about is so real that it just makes the creatures feel even more real once we finally get to them. And Just Desserts, it was so sweet. I love the cast. The casting is so well done. The characters are they do just enough to really get you to invest in these characters, even though it's only been an hour. And I cannot wait to see what happens next. And I watched the little teaser at the end of the credits, and holy crap, it looks like we've got so much happening in over the next couple of episodes.
Yes.
Some incredible things. Yeah, I would say that Jonathan Majors as Atticus, they call him Tick, is incredible in this. And of course, Jurnee Smollett is great as Letitia. I think they call her Letty, right? Letty a lot. Yeah, she's really fantastic.
This is two real big things for her this year, right? With Birds of Prey and now this.
Yeah. So, but we still got to find out what Christopher G. Moore thought. Christopher G. Moore, what was your first impression of the first episode of Lovecraft Country?
Well, I think it's, I think it's a well-crafted beginning, or well love-crafted beginning, if you want.
I see what you did there.
Tons.
And I think, it's definitely very. It's interesting how a lot of these elements that we're dealing with today in our own society are still being reflected from back in the day. And so, I mean, even stuff like, even they have like the Aunt Jemima, ad and all these different things. It's sort of, there's that whole thing. There's that whole sequence where you have this person talking about race or whatever, and then they show all these different scenes from that time of where, the segregation and stuff. And, I'm not gonna lie, I got mad during parts of it because it's like, wow, this is part of our history. It's just like to treat people like, like animals or whatever in our society. They're no different than us, other than just the color of their skin is just, it just made me mad. But I mean, you have to do that. You have to show that. And I think it shows the power of it, that you can still tell a story that deals with, racist type stuff, but at the same time tells an interesting story. And, the actors are spot on great in all their roles. I'm developing a crush on Jurnee Smollett, who played Letitia. I mean, I loved her in Birds of Prey, and I love her in this. So she's definitely on my crush list.
That's a long list.
I tell you, that's a long list. Considering I will never be able to date these people in real life, that list is going to be ever widening. On top of that, you also have the fantastical elements that, it's you have a film that you deal with the racist elements, but you also tell this story about these fully fleshed out characters. You get to know them throughout their interactions with other people, which is, that's great screenplay writing right there. And then also you have the fantastical elements, which are done so really well done. I mean, and the use of color. I mean, I think one of my favorite sequences doesn't even have anything to really do with fantasy, is when they have the block party.
Oh yeah.
And they have these greens and pinks, just that normally would be used for more, sci-fi type elements, or even H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, if you saw the color out of space, there's use of that almost like that purplish pink. And they use that a lot here. There's also the use of the color red. They could talk about like when they're going on this travel, they're traveling to different places, and supposedly there's people that are supporters of the black race or whatever. They have red, and there's like one sequence where they're trying to escape from something, and there's a red door, and then their clothing has red on it, and so there's all that stuff that sort of plays into the storytelling element without having to like specifically point it out. But if you think about it, it's like, oh wow. So, and just the incorporation of those things, the little teases here and there of this universe that's starting to unfold in front of them. The monsters kind of reminded me a little bit of the Super 8 monster a little bit, but maybe it's because of J.J. Abrams is part of it. But again, they have those things like, hey, what's in the woods? Oh, it's just, these creatures with all kinds of eyes, and there are creatures with all kinds of eyes. So there's things like that pop up. It's like, oh wow, this is really cool. It's where like, the story unfolds more and more. It definitely made me realize that I'm so glad for technology and other things, because I'd be so scared to travel those roads back in the day where you don't know if your car could break down, and if you're a person of color, oh God, I was stressed out the whole time. So yeah, I think it's, for this to be the pilot episode, it's a great introduction to those characters. you really care about the family, you care about all these different characters and their specific demons they're dealing with. It opened with a really amazing opening, which I was like, oh God, this is really a beautifully shot thing that was done partially in old-timey war type stuff and old-timey sci-fi stuff, and they kind of melded together to where you're going from black and white to color. And I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. That opening scene is gorgeous. So yeah, I think I'm in. I'm really interested to see where this story goes. And they're definitely, it's not one of those things where they hide the supernatural elements until like later on. This is not Jaws, because you get it full blast, you know. So, but yeah, I really love this pilot episode, and it makes me excited to see where they're gonna go with the story.
Yeah, me too. It really blew me away. I didn't know exactly what I was going to expect. I've heard good things. We're watching it because of our interest in horror films. So, this being a horror series, of course, but the kind of horror that I think we were, or at least I was expecting, isn't really there out of the gate. I mean, it's in the first 10 minutes or first couple minutes with that intro, which is a dream sequence, but we get to see the big guy. And then he gets beaten with a bat. Now that was awesome. That was awesome. But I found myself not caring.
Jackie Robinson. He gets beaten by a bat by Jackie Robinson.
That's right. Yes.
Maybe that's too spoilery.
No, that's fine. It's in the first few minutes. It's fine.
Okay.
It's a great opening. But I didn't care. I was really getting into it. I mean, the story when it was, like the first half hour is almost all in Chicago, as our characters, come together. Tick, or Atticus, is coming back home to find his father who's gone missing. And we find, we meet his uncle, his aunt, his cousin, I guess. And of course, Letitia and her sister, and the backstory for her. And we meet her brother later. So you really get a lot of backstory with these characters told like Christopher was saying, and the best way possible. This really is a terrific script. I mean, it might be one of the best scripts for our first episode pilot ever. Really should be recognized. It is structured so beautifully and so magnetically. You're in it and you're watching them and you're feeling it, and you in some cases it might be like opening up your eyes to like a world or a perspective to a world that you didn't realize or maybe had forgotten. And it's heartbreaking. And like Christopher said, it can make you angry. So it has that aspect to it, but it also makes you feel for our characters. You can feel for their plight. You understand what they're going through. You understand the journey, they're going for their father. And even though there's a conflict there too, which, we get, a little backstory on that. I'm sure we're going to get more from the previous. And this is all like in the first hour, I think it's mostly all this until we finally get down, to what Sundown has. Now, Sundown has a lot of meanings in this particular story, and one thing that I'd heard about but kind of forgotten, the Sundown towns, or in this case, a Sundown County, and that's what a horrible thing that existed, and that sheriff was such a shit, man. He tricked him, and it was tense. I mean, toward the end, it's basically a car chase, but it's a car chase that's only going 25 miles an hour, but it works, right? Because you can't go higher than 25 miles an hour because, well, different reasons you'll see when you watch it, but it's so tense. And then from there, it just goes, completely bonkers and off the rails. But the topics that we're talking about don't go away. A good number of these characters on opposing thoughts about racism are stuck in this cabin with a big red door. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's actually kind of awesome. I saw the red door, but I didn't put it together. And that racism doesn't go away, and they still have to face it. And that just tells you how deep rooted it was. And it's what is the true horror here, right?
Well, and I think I was just thinking about this. Think about this family. They're dealing with all the racial injustices going on, and each one of like the main family group, they're all looking out there to. You have the mom who's looking into space, like places she can venture to. You have the daughter who's like into writing stories, putting her family into and almost like superheroes. Going. You have the main guy who reading John Carter of Mars because he'd love to be that person that would go off to this other place and be considered a hero. You have the father who's basically almost that superhero thing. He's venturing into places where they haven't ventured yet, trying to fight off, to help make it safe for other people. So he's basically a live action superhero. So you have all these characters that are seeking something bigger than what their own lives are allowing them to do, but they still have that hope for that. And maybe in some ways that main guy, his hope for being able to fight monsters and stuff is going to come true.
Yeah.
But I love that. Do you have all these things that have these bigger dreams about things, despite all the things that are being held against them and the limitations that are put to them because of the color of their skin. And I love that. And that to me, that's perfect storytelling. When you have all these characters, you get this is just the pilot. We got to know all these different elements of these characters and who they are. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just love that. I love that,
Well, and using John Carter on Mars and talking about the author, ex-Confederate, and comparing, that is an instant comparison to Lovecraft, saying, look at the art, not the artist, right? And her saying you can forgive, but basically you can forgive, but you can't forget. And there's a certain line to forgiveness for what people do or did. And that tied in too with the voiceovers of the recordings they do of civil rights activists of the time. How insanely poignant is that to hear those words that were spoken at that time that people are saying today? I just love it.
Yeah. And I grew up in some very small towns in the South, and, I could see a lot of that stuff happening. It breaks my heart, and it just, to see that, and that it was just, even worse, but it still goes on today. You still have like a lot of these small towns, where people are just that closed-minded about things, and it sucks, but you have to see it. You can't keep brushing it under the rug like a lot of people have been doing over these years. And so I think this is the kind of show that doesn't it still has a meaning to it, but at the same time, it also has the entertainment value of telling these stories involving these wonderful characters.
Between this and The Watchmen, I think people are going to get a real history lesson.
Yeah, HBO. Thank you. I like it when George Freeman writes, these travel guides to where you can travel safely in the States, and they go to one place that that's on the guide, but when they get there, it's no longer the place it is. And what was really interesting is that this is how smart this show is. It's so intelligent because it's like, remind me why they painted the White House walls white. Why they painted a house walls white, and because inside this diner, the diner that they're in, which isn't called this what it was, it's the walls were white, and they realized it was had been burnt down and repainted and everything, and of course that starts a rather invigorating action scene where they're running for their lives. It's really well done.
Literally whitewashed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there is still some mystery to it. We have some characters that we see that we don't know yet. And then, of course, it ends with them, I guess, finding their destination because they're looking for what they first call Arkham, and they realized that the K is a D, and that's Artem, Massachusetts, and I guess that's where we're going to go next week. How exciting was that, Chris? There, Slattman. Did you like how this episode ended?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not really much else to say for that. Yeah, it was a good cliffhanger. Left you wanting more.
Yes.
And it's nice to know that they were able to make it safely.
Yes, we've been expecting you, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like they're walking around with bloody clothes. I don't think I would want to be in their shoes.
In an incredibly racist part of the country.
Yeah, the most racist part of that country, and so I was like, oh, I was feeling bad. I was like, I hope nothing really bad happens to them, But it's a pilot, so at least they're gonna survive.
At least another episode or two, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we are all giving this a very strong thumbs up.
Tentacles up.
Tentacles up. What do we wrap it up with? Like a favorite scene and maybe a real quick, recommendation on it. Vanessa, why don't you start us off?
Watch it. Watch it. Get HBO and watch it, or you can't legitimately call yourself a horror fan. I'm sorry. If you're into horror, if you are into cosmic horror, if you're into sci-fi horror, if you're into actual real life civil rights horror, then this is something that you need to be watching and have in your repertoire. Jordan Peele has... I'm floored to know his comedic background and to see the arc that he's taken into horror and sci-fi fantasy is just, it makes my heart sing at how well he understands it, how well he's able to just put it on the table and put it out there. It's so nuanced in so many ways. So yeah, watch it, or yeah, you're out. Sorry. Favorite scene, favorite person, Letitia fucking Lewis.
Yes!
Civil rights activist. I freaking love her. And that leads to my favorite scene where you first get into that kind of what's happening here kind of situation when we see that silver car. Yeah. And that silver car takes action to help them. And how does that silver car do that without, the results that you would expect from something like that, without giving too much away? That was the kicker for me. And you knew that the people in that silver car were going to come back later on. And I just really, really loved that scene, her taking charge and her saying, my name's not girl, because even her uncle saying that to her, but her entire life she's been called that, girl. She's been called girl just as much as Atticus has been called boy. And it's just such a strong moment. She's just the perfect, strong female character for this role.
Yeah, I like how strong she is, actually. Mm-hmm. All right, Slattman, recommendation and favorite scene, sir.
It's very good. I will openly admit that I was not expecting what we got. I watched maybe one or two trailers, got excited for the trailers that I saw, but I did not do any background look into this at all before I watched it, because I wanted to be as surprised as possible. And I came for the Lovecraft inspired world, and I am very happy that what we got is so much bigger and so much deeper, and it's very much a surprise, and it's a good surprise, and it's well worth your time. My favorite scene is the one that Doc already brought up. It's their realization of what happened at the diner, and all of that build up, and all of the little tells before the light bulb goes off for all of them, between driving into the town, pulling up to the place, the spot right next to the diner having boards all over it. Like there's so much foreshadowing, and it's such a great tension. That whole scene is just so tense and so well done. Yeah, I loved that scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great scene. It was indeed. All right, Christopher G. Moore, give us your recommendation, favorite scene.
Yeah, I think this is a great start to the series. It makes me really excited to see where it goes from here, because I think it's, they just do a good job of sort of taking a lot of the issues of that specific time period that are still very happening now. Also having, like most horror and sci-fi concepts usually have a lot of times have an underlying meaning to them. I mean, going back to the Night of the Living Dead or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, there's always some kind of issue that people are dealing with, that sometimes the best way to explain it to you is using sci-fi or horror concepts. Except in this one, a lot of the horror is that, the racism of that time, how people looked at people in the wrong way and treated people so much differently, but yet they were requiring them to go fight for our country and stuff. So it's so, and I think, not only do we get a piece of that time period, but also, people were still living their lives. They're still, working, trying to do things, trying to take care of their families, just like everybody else. And so, and you have this underlying concept of this other thing that's out there that they may be connected to, and that, and I think all the sort of like the stars came together to create a wonderful constellation of story that's makes me very excited. And I just while we're recording this, I just saw that K&B Effects did some of the effects stuff too.
Nice.
And there's some really cool effects. I mean, granted, there is a good amount of CGI type stuff as well, but there's some really great effects, and and even though this is like a Lovecraft type thing, there's so many references to other, like we've said, other types of literature and stuff, whether it be Dracula or John Carter. So, I mean, they're really they did a great job with this, and they cast it really well. The guy who directed it, and the cinematography is amazing. The use of color, everything just comes together to make a really great start to this series that, people need to watch, because not only will it, it definitely informs of that specific time period, but also it's a very entertaining show that makes you really care about the characters and care about their situations. And there's parts that make you laugh and parts that make you tense and stressed out. That whole car scene was just make you mad because of the situation to get into. So yeah, it's really well done. This, just this pilot makes me want to be a better writer. That you can say so much, because there's even some simple interactions. There's a really great scene where they introduce Letitia's character to her sister while she's on stage. And just the way they interact seems like a normal interaction, but also says so much about who they are. And that's great writing. And so, yeah, I was really impressed with this, much more than what I expected, even though times made me mad, but also just made me sort of excited to see these characters and where they go from here. As for favorite scene, there's a lot of things that I could pick. But just for visual wise, I love the intro. I love that thing, because I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's starting off like an old-timey war movie. It's like, whoa, we got color. Oh, whoa, we got flying saucers. What the hell's going on here?
A bit Overlord-ish in a way.
Very like that.
Abrams,
I was like,
right? Abrams bringing that in.
At first, I was like, I would just watch a whole show just to war people fighting aliens, but just that opening scene where, even though it's fantastical, but you can sort of understand that the real monster is more racism than anything else, just in that opening scene, even though it's all sci-fi, but you see that. It's just a great entry point to sort of, because you have this guy who dreams big, but even his dreams are haunted by the nightmares of the situations he has to deal with as a black man of that specific time period. So yeah, I love this show. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this. Thank you, HBO. Thank you, J.J. Abrams. Thank you, Jordan Peele. Thank you. Let me get the name right. Misha Green and the rest of the crew, the actors. This is really is a rewarding piece of television. I was literally blown away. I was just so drawn into these characters, the situation, the story, the representation of the time they're living in, up to and the fantasy that they end up encountering toward the end. It really does deliver. And wow, you need to see this. If you're a horror fan, I know we're talking about a lot of things that you're like, can't I just have fun with my horror? You're going to have fun. You're going to have fun. When it gets to the horror, you are going to be rewarded and satisfied. It delivers. There are creatures. There is blood. There is mayhem. And
there's one part made me jump.
Yes, there's a lot to make you jump. And I love that they quote Dracula to make it all tied together. And they say, okay, what happens when you're bitten by a vampire?
The creatures of the night.
Yes,
him delivering that line.
And the fact that they're so ignorant, they didn't know what the line was from.
Ignorant in more ways than one.
Yeah, there's a lot of ignorance. But see this. My favorite scene, I'm just going to say block party. The whole block party, I loved it. I loved the introduction of our of Letty and the interaction with her sister and all the background we get with her. And then it lets Tick have a little bit of a scene, and then it ends with finding a little background about George and his travels and why he really is afraid to let his wife travel alone. With his kneecaps being busted on one trip. What would happen if it was her instead of him? That says a lot, right? It says a lot. But it was just so. There was such a sense of community and culture in that block party, and I just thought it was fantastic. It has nothing to do with the horror elements at all, really, but it really was. It was a good scene.
It really was one of the best shot scenes too.
I agree with that.
Just the use of color and stuff, along with everything that's happening. Yeah, it's really that's what stood out. Just the use of color that added to the ambiance of this wonderful block parties people were having.
And isn't it great to have that kind of high right before taking us through this tumultuous, kind of, I won't even say up, mostly downs that they go through until they reach their final destination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even when they find safety at her brother's house, there's still some conflict.
There's internal turmoil. Yeah.
All right.
By the way, their car is red too, so there's another
the Woody
the safety of red.
Safety of red. All right, fine. We'll keep that up. Let's see what happens next episode. All right. Speaking of that, we're going to try to do this every Sunday night. Time permits, and we hope you enjoy our review of Lovecraft Country. This was episode 1, Sundown, which aired August 16th, 2020. And if you like what you're seeing here, please subscribe below, hit the like button, hit the bells so you get notified. Let us know what you thought of this particular show or what you think of the series. I think the next 9 weeks are going to be fantastic.
Can't wait.
Yes. All right. With that, Christopher, Slattman, Vanessa, thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's wonderful. I can't wait for us to talk more about this series.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join.
How could we not?
Yes, look at all those beasties you got. You're surrounded. All right, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Gruesome Magazine.